Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the News Fest team.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekar. We'll start off by taking a look at your headlines for tonight.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
President meets the Indian Prime Minister for talks. MOU reached for economic development of projects in the Trincomalee district. LTTE member who was sentenced to 200 years in prison for central bank bombing and another accused granted presidential pardon. Top Chinese Communist Party officials meet former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. Water cannons used to disperse student-monk protest. Bacterial pathogen discovered in another anesthetic.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
Taking a look at those stories in detail now, Sri Lanka and India on Friday agreed to further develop Trincomalee as a national and regional hub of industry, energy and economic activity on the basis of mutual understanding.
The relevant documents were exchanged in New Delhi in the presence of Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Hyderabad House.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi, India. Following bilateral discussions, both sides agreed to further develop Trincomalee as a national and regional hub of industry, energy and economic activity on the basis of mutual understanding. The relevant documents were exchanged in the presence of Prime Minister Modi and President Wickremesinghe.
We have the exchange of Memorandum of Cooperation for Economic Development of Projects in the Trincomalee district of Sri Lanka. From the Sri Lankan side, the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to India, and from the Indian side, Shri Gopal Bagle, High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, please.
As per the Indian-Sri Lanka Economic Partnership Vision, both countries have agreed to further develop Trincomalee as a national and regional hub of industry, energy and economic activity on the basis of mutual understanding. In addition, Sri Lanka and India have agreed to cooperate for construction of a multi-product petroleum pipeline from southern part of India to Sri Lanka and mutually agreed to undertake a joint exploration and production of hydrocarbons in Sri Lanka's offshore basins. Furthermore, both sides agreed to establish land connectivity between Sri Lanka and India for developing land access to the ports of Trincomalee and Colombo, and a feasibility study for such connectivity will be conducted at an early date.
We have decided that the work of connecting the electricity grids between the two countries will be carried forward rapidly. Between India and Sri Lanka, a feasibility study will be done for a petroleum pipeline. Apart from this, the feasibility of a land bridge will also be examined.
The development of Trincomalee as an energy hub with the support of India is a crucial step towards Sri Lanka's goal to evaluate Trincomalee as a hub for industry and other economic activities. Prime Minister Modi and I believe that the construction of a multi-project petroleum pipeline from southern part of India to Sri Lanka will ensure an affordable and reliable supply of energy resources to Sri Lanka.
India and Sri Lanka on Friday signed an agreement over the acceptance of Unified Payments Interface technology in the island country. The Unified Payments Interface, or the UPI, is an interface via which you can transfer money between bank accounts across a single window. UPI is a brainchild of the National Payments Corporation of India, also known as NPCI, the umbrella organization that oversees retail payment systems in India. UPI is currently being used by around 7 countries in the world. Sri Lanka and India also issued a joint declaration of intent in the field of animal husbandry between India and Sri Lanka, and also exchanged the energy permit for the Sampur solar power project handed over to Sri Lanka.
हमारी सभ्यताओं की तरह ही
Our relations are as ancient as our civilizations and are widespread. Sri Lanka also has an important place in both India's neighborhood first policy and Saga vision. Today we shared our views on bilateral, regional and international issues. We believe that the security interests and development of India and Sri Lanka are intertwined. Today we have adopted a vision document for our economic partnership. The vision is to strengthen maritime, air, energy and people-to-people connectivity between the people of both countries. This is the vision of accelerating mutual cooperation in tourism, power, trade, higher education and skill development. This is the vision of India's long-term commitment to Sri Lanka.
long-term commitment का.
We believe that India's growth will be beneficial to the neighborhood and the Indian Ocean region. I have also appraised Prime Minister Modi of the extraordinary challenges that Sri Lanka has experienced in economic, social and political terms in the past year, and of the reform measures I have spearheaded on a number of fronts in overcoming these challenges. In reviewing recent developments in Sri Lanka, I shared with Prime Minister Modi my commitment to bring about economic recovery leading to sustainable and stable growth with justice and equity, which will benefit all segments of Sri Lankan society in all parts of the country.
The Indian Prime Minister also expressed his hope for Sri Lanka's commitment to the 13th Constitutional Amendment.
हमने श्रीलंका में
We also talked about reconstruction and reconciliation in Sri Lanka. President Wickremesinghe told me about his inclusive approach. We hope that the Sri Lankan government will fulfill the aspirations of the Tamils. It will carry forward the process of reconstruction for equality, justice and peace. It will fulfill its commitments to implement the 13th Amendment and hold provincial council elections, and the Tamil community of Sri Lanka to live with respect and dignity.
और श्रीलंका के तमिल समुदाय के लिए
I also shared with him the comprehensive proposal I presented this week for furthering reconciliation, power sharing through devolution, and the multiple elements of the Northern Development Plan. I have invited all party leaders in Parliament to work towards consensus and national unity on these measures. Thereafter, the government will place relevant legislation before Parliament.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Friday. Welcoming President Wickremesinghe to India, the Indian President said that Sri Lanka occupies a special place in India's neighbourhood first policy and Saga vision. She emphasised that India has always stood with Sri Lanka during its hour of need and would continue to do so in the future as well. The two leaders noted that India and Sri Lanka are working on many key projects in several sectors and that India-Sri Lanka development partnership has touched the lives of Sri Lankans in a positive way. The Indian President said that India looks forward to continuing and strengthening its developmental partnership with Sri Lanka under the leadership of President Wickremesinghe.
The other key element that came up for discussion with regard to the ongoing recovery of the Sri Lankan economy, besides of course the substantial Indian assistance that was offered since the crisis broke out in Sri Lanka, related to the role that bilateral trade and investment can play in further speeding up the economic recovery of Sri Lanka. This of course included starting discussions on bilateral economic and technology cooperation agreement and related element on the start of the use of INR for trade settlements, which as you know has been ongoing for some time. Related to the land connectivity between India and Sri Lanka. This was, the idea was proposed by the Sri Lankan president. Both leaders agreed to take this forward, and in taking this forward, you would have heard Prime Minister in his press remarks say that both sides would carry it forward through an initial feasibility study to look at this land connectivity between the two countries, which would of course help to bring about economic prosperity to both our societies, also help in regional cohesion with the two countries, and can be a source of tremendous bilateral and the regional economic prosperity.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was on an official two-day visit to India, met with Indian billionaire industrialist Gautam Adani in New Delhi and discussed development projects. Adani tweeted that he met with Wickremesinghe to discuss a series of projects, including the continued development of the Colombo Port West Container Terminal, a 500-megawatt wind project. Adani also said he extended the renewal of energy expertise to produce green hydrogen.
Yuan Jiajun, a member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, called on former president and leader of the SLPP, Mahinda Rajapaksa, on Friday.
Yuan Jiajun, a member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and a Chinese delegation, met with former president and leader of the SLPP Mahinda Rajapaksa on Friday at the Vijayarama residence in Colombo. SLPP MP Namal Rajapaksa posted on Facebook that the representatives of the Chinese Communist Party visited Sri Lanka with the aim of developing mutual relations and to meet former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Namal Rajapaksa recalled that every time some world powers stood against Sri Lanka, countries like China unconditionally provided strength to Sri Lanka, and that this bilateral friendship has remained strong and unchanged to date. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa posted on Facebook that means to further strengthen bilateral relations between the two countries received special attention in this discussion. General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna, Sagara Karyawasam, Bandulu Gunawardena, Mahinda Ananda Alutkamage and Pavitra Vanyarachi also participated in this discussion. Yuan Jiajun, a member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, called on opposition leader Sajith Premadasa on Thursday. The media unit of the opposition leader said that political, social and economic matters of mutual interest were discussed at the meeting. Civil and political activists commented on the president's visit to India.
In Sri Lankan history, every head of state gets a visit to India during the first few months. However, Ranil Wickremesinghe did not get it like that. It was difficult for him. According to India, this opportunity was not given to him. Therefore, we will have to be watchful of the agreements that will be reached in India, be it advantages or disadvantages to the country. The president has gone to India to sell. Usually it is the other way around. He had met with Adani and we do not know what was sold to Adani. We are compelled to plead on producing these to the parliament. So where is democracy? Where is the public finance power vested with the parliament? Where is the respect given to the people's mandate? We will only know what was sold to India after he returns. The LNG power plant was given to the US and Adani is going to be given the wind power plant. A petroleum pipeline is to be set up from India and a gas pipeline will come from Trincomalee to Colombo. The Trincomalee oil tanks are owned by India. All the so-called patriots have made Sri Lanka another colony of the US and India. They do not care about the lives of the people.
The Uttara Lanka Sabhagya questioned whether the move to remove the chairman of Sri Lanka Telecom was a result of a meeting that took place in the UK between Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Aliraja Subhashkaran, the founder and chairman of Lanka Mobile. The chairman of Sri Lanka Telecom, who was against the privatization of SLT, was removed by a boardroom coup. We believe this is the result of the meeting that took place in the UK between President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Aliraja Subhashkaran, the chairman of Lanka Mobile. India's top billionaire had met with the president this morning to discuss other state-owned enterprises. A decision has been made on what SOEs need to be privatized and to whom they would be given to. There is a serious concern over politics and morals when he meets the president to discuss these matters. The former Ranil Wickremesinghe is re-emerging, and that is an issue to the country's economy.
On
Thursday, the Sri Lanka Telecom Board of Directors passed a resolution to remove Rohan Fernando from the post of SLT Chairman and replaced him with Riaz Mihular.
I cannot be certain. I assume there is a need to sell it. I may have been an obstacle in that process.
Members of the Sri Lanka Telecom branch of the Jatika Sevaka Sangama, which is linked to the United National Party, met in Sirikotha and said that one of the reasons to remove the chairman was the coordination issue that arose with their parent union.
There
was a coordinated issue from the Jatika Sevaka Sangama. There was a coordinated issue between the chairman of the parent union of the SLT Jatika Sevaka Sangama with regard to the upgrades that worsened the situation. I assumed this was caused due to the lack of coordination with the parent union.
The Telecommunication Workers Union also commented on the removal of the Sri Lanka Telecom chairman.
The new chairman of SLT is the chairman of the committee appointed by the SLT board to restructure Sri Lanka Telecom. As trade unions and workers, we suspect this was a move to finalize the privatization process.
Trade unions of the SLPP, which controls a majority in government, also commented on the removal of the SLT chairman.
We assume
that the board of directors has been bought over. The Malaysian firm that holds a 35% stake did not invest in Sri Lanka Telecom. They always took their share. They have worked to remove Rohan Fernando from the post of chairman. They appointed a new chairman because they cannot go against the workers united against privatization.
The National Freedom Front made a revelation during a media briefing.
Sri Lanka Telecom Vikineme Boker Karuana Riaz Mueller.
Riaz Mehula is the broker serving to sell Sri Lanka Telecom. Ranil Wickremesinghe launched his program on SLT through him. Riaz Mehula was appointed to the SLT board 7 months ago by the president. He is the person who is consulting the restructuring committee for Sri Lanka Telecom. He had informed the board several times that he was made a director in order to restructure SLT or to sell it to Ali Raja Subhaskaran. We are told that Ali Raja Subhaskaran is in the country waiting to take hold of Sri Lanka Telecom.
Subhas Ali Raja දැන් ලංකාවේ ඉන්නවා ටෙලිකොම් ගන්න බලාගෙන.
A former LTTE member who was sentenced to 200 years in prison after he was found guilty over the 1996 central bank bombing that killed 91 people was granted a presidential pardon.
A senior official attached to Sri Lanka's Department of Prisons said that the former LTTE member identified as Selaya Navaratnam was sentenced to 200 years and was granted a presidential pardon. In addition, another former LTTE member identified as S. Sanmugaraja, who was serving a life sentence, was also given a presidential pardon. The two former LTTE members were released from prison on the 18th of July 2023. Selaya Navaratnam, who was sentenced to 200 years by the High Court over the 1996 central bank bombing and had his sentence also confirmed by the Court of Appeal, is currently 69 years old. A spokesperson for Sri Lanka's Department of Prisons said that he was given a presidential pardon for good behaviour. 56-year-old S. Samugaraja, who was also given a presidential pardon, was serving a life sentence after he was found guilty of peddling goods to the LTTE.
Now on to a topic that has been making headlines over the past few months. Tests conducted by the laboratory of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority confirmed that another anesthetic drug used in Sri Lanka contains bacterial residue.
The controversial anesthetic propofol was tested following the recent deaths in several hospitals.
The National Medicines Regulatory Authority said it was confirmed that the anesthetic propofol contains bacterial waste called endotoxins. The controversial drug propofol was brought into Sri Lanka without the drug being registered at the NMRA, using provisions that allow the authority to purchase medicine during an emergency.
Based on the report we received from the NMRA yesterday, 2 batches of the drug have failed the tests conducted, so we took steps to remove these 2 batches from use. We received a new batch of anesthetic drugs this evening. We informed the NMRA regarding these reactions. The State Pharmaceutical Corporation of Sri Lanka and the NMRA are doing the needful.
Earlier, 2 women died at the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital after being administered the bupivacaine anesthetic and laboratory tests confirmed that the drug was substandard. The bupivacaine anesthetic was also imported under provisions that allowed the authority to purchase medicine during an emergency. This was the revelation made by specialist Dr. Ananda Vikrama during the Mavata program that was aired on Thursday night.
I have two documents signed by the CEO of the NMRA. One is the test report of the bupivacaine anesthetic drug. This report states that the batch which was tested is substandard. This is an anesthetic drug. There is a similar report regarding the anesthetic drug called propofol, and that batch of drugs has also been removed from use. This was signed by the director of the laboratory of the NMRA stating that it is substandard. There is an issue. These drugs are of low quality, and no one can say that low quality drugs were not imported, because these were imported. If someone says so, they are lying.
The Frontline Socialist Party said the subject minister should take responsibility to resolve this issue.
The propofol drug that was purchased was manufactured by SP Acua Labs Private Limited, which is an Indian company. The anaesthefol drug was manufactured by an Indian company called Nabni Medical Laboratories. The report confirmed that the medicine from these two companies are substandard. The subject minister bought these drugs by issuing a waiver of registration. Both types of the propofol drug were imported this way. It was confirmed that 3 of these drugs linked to the deaths and cases of people losing their sight were substandard and bought without proper registration. The health minister who signed the waiver of registration should take responsibility.
This was the response of the Ministry of Health who appeared for a court case on Friday.
The no-confidence motion against Health Minister Kehliya Ramukalla, signed by 45 members of the opposition, including the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, was handed over to the Speaker on Friday. Samagi Jana Balawegaya parliamentarian Hector Puhami also revealed about the purchase of drugs in Parliament.
In this drug process, I need to note that a company named SLIM imported the heavy McCain drug. 5 deaths are linked to this in the recent times. A person called Sumit, linked to the Rajapaksas, is involved. Then V. Nataraja, from Farmer Associates, imported the Propofol medicine. That caused 2 deaths. Both Sumit and Nataraja have imported medicines via the NMRA when those medicines failed the quality tests. So how did these medicines reach the hospitals? This is a very serious issue.
News First with the people.
Be the first to know about the biggest stories as they break. Subscribe to News First English News Alerts. News First, your trusted English news channel.
News First. Main sponsor.
Darden's Hospital, dedicated to you. When a heart attack strikes, every minute makes the difference between life and death. With the right care and treatment at the hand of the most skilled surgeons and medical professionals. With the perfect environment for recovery. Darden's Heart Centre, dedicated to you.
State Minister of Finance Shehan Sema Singh has stressed that no matter what challenges may arise, the program with the International Monetary Fund will continue. He was speaking during the debate on the Banking Special Provisions Bill that was passed in Parliament with amendments on Friday. No matter what comes in our way, we will remain in the program implemented under the agreement with the IMF. We will not leave it at any cost. The government took steps to release import restrictions on 327 of the 930 HS codes. Preparations are underway to release the import restrictions on another 300 HS codes by the month of September. Then vehicle imports related to 300 HS codes will be restricted, and a decision on that will have to be taken after a comprehensive review. The economy has not strengthened simply because the proposals by the IMF were implemented. It is clear that restructuring will take place. We urge the government to stop these charades because you will regret it. The appropriation bill was issued. It says that the debt ceiling will be raised from 4,979 billion to 13,970 billion. That is an increase of 9 trillion rupees. The debt ceiling is not actually borrowing. This is for the debt optimization program, and we need to fulfill our legal requirements. The current debt ceiling is 4,979 and it was requested to increase it to 13,222. It appears that a decision was reached to borrow 9 trillion rupees more. There is no link to any optimization in this. The appropriation bill seeks to increase borrowings by 9 trillion rupees. I can responsibly state that the amendment is for domestic debt optimization.
Sri Lanka police fired water cannons to disperse a protest march organised by the Inter-University Bhikkhu Federation in Town Hall, Colombo.
The Inter-University Bhikkhu Federation organised a protest march in Colombo on Friday against the slashing of subjects and demanding an increase to the student intake at the Kelaniya and Peradeniya state universities. The student monks attempted to proceed to the University Grants Commission. Thereafter, Sri Lanka police fired water cannons to disperse the student monks. The protesters moved to the D'Souza circus and protested, while a heavy security presence was seen in the area. 5 student monks were then allowed to meet with the chairman of the University Grants Commission. The chairman of the UGC noted that universities have informed him that students who enter via the special entrance program are showing less interest in their academics.
The special entrance is for the low Z score students. They are not showing an interest in their academics, according to the reports given by vice chancellors and the deans of faculties.
A forum focusing on the implications of the domestic debt optimization on Sri Lanka's growth opportunities and challenges was held in Colombo on Friday.
CFA Society Sri Lanka CEO Forum, rebooting Sri Lankan economy post-domestic debt optimization, where industry leaders facilitated a constructive dialogue on opportunities and challenges created for the Sri Lankan economy and industries with announcing the DDO program, was held in Colombo on Friday. Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe delivered the keynote address.
New Central Banking Act, finally we have been able to get it passed on the Parliament. Now it's a law. So more importantly, this Act provides what we call the necessary legal framework to adopt flexible inflation targeting regime. Someone asked here in the morning, do we have to go to whether there will be a second DDO? If we deviate from the path, there could be a DDO. There could be another before the bankruptcy. That's very clear. For example, now government has committed 2.3% primary surplus. They go back to what we had minus 6% primary surplus. Then there will be another non-sustainable situation. There could be a need for another DDO. This is why we don't need another DDO, but this DDO is quite strong enough and consistent with the targets to restore the sustainability, subject to the fact that other elements of policies, the policy path should also move parallelly, both fiscal policy, structural reforms and growth path. In my view, this DDO and restore the sustainability is a much more conservative path if you do it right.
If you may try to give an estimate, how long it might take for us to go back to maybe 2019 ratings where we were borrowing from capital markets?
As you know, from 2016, over the next 6 years, we downgraded Sri Lanka 6 times. So we had what's called a soft landing. We would have had chaos if we were at a higher rating and had a free fall at a default immediately. And if you want to go to a capital market and actually raise capital, typically you need to be at a minimum B- or a B flat. So for us to go there depends on a lot of what we do, as the governor was also saying. How much of what we say we will do, both in terms of domestic economy and how we manage our external finances, will have a bearing on that. I can't see that moving happening. Maybe it'll take maybe 2 or 3 years. I'm not. Don't hold me to that, sure. But that's the kind of time horizon.
I think government has committed to a medium to long term, the macro stability, structural reforms and growth enhancing, all these things. And it's I think your responsibility, all stakeholders as a public, private sector, just to ensure the government, the elected by you, would move in the same direction. If there's any deviation, it's your responsibility to get them on track. Otherwise, you all will be affected. So that is, I think, this don't blame the government, politician that they change. It's your responsibility to ensure the people who elect by you would move in the same direction without deviating from the path that we already presented. That has to be the path. Any deviation, that's stakeholders, private sector, everyone have a very good small responsibility to get them back on the track. Otherwise, everyone will be out of the track.
This forum also focused on action that needs to be implemented by multiple stakeholders to ensure Sri Lanka is set on a sustainable growth path.
Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said that Sri Lanka's financial literacy is at a low.
The Centre for Banking Studies, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and the Sri Lanka Press Institute organised a certificate awarding ceremony for the Macroeconomics for Journalists 2022 programme. The event was attended by Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Paul Stevens and journalists.
Financial literacy is very low. Compared to recent latest survey told us it's about, I think, 53%. The population basically have basic financial literacy. The general public are misled by several kind of ideologies, several kind of scams, different schemes, all these what they call pyramid schemes. All these things are basically due to lack of financial literacy. This is, I think, it's important that the journalists should play that important role.
Paul Stevens, Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, emphasised that the Sri Lankan government should continue on the path of reforms.
We have seen economic stability return. We've seen a much more stable political and social environment. So in reality, you could hardly have imagined a better situation given where the country was 12 months ago. And I think, to be fair, the work that the Governor of the Central Bank has done in this respect has been extremely critical. That there are huge challenges still ahead. There will be negative growth this year, perhaps a return to slight positive growth next year, but even if that happens, it won't be enough to lift Sri Lanka on its own out of the economic malaise. My advice to the Sri Lankan government is to continue on the path of reform, to continue on the path of diversifying your economy and in particular your export sectors. Australian businesses interested in making substantial investments here in Sri Lanka in certain sectors, in particular energy and resources.
The Jaffna Premier League football tournament kicked off on Thursday, and Shakti TV is the media sponsor for this event.
Several first-round matches of the Jaffna Premier League football tournament sponsored by Shakti TV were held today. The matches were held at the Barshiyur, Ariale, Young Henderson and Puttur Everest stadiums in Jaffna. 12 teams qualified for the second round today. 24 teams have qualified for the second round in this tournament. Several first-round matches will take place at the Ariale Stadium tomorrow as well, while the second-round matches will commence on the 23rd of July. The tournament is organised by the Northern Province Sports Department with the aim of selecting players for the national team.
In a thrilling encounter at Pisara Oval, Colombo, Pakistan A emerged victorious over Sri Lanka A by 60 runs in the first semi-final of the ACC Men's Emerging Teams Asia Cup 2023.
Pakistan A won the toss and elected to bat first. They got off to a solid start thanks to a brilliant partnership between Saim Ayub and Shahibzada Farhan. The duo laid a strong foundation and their efforts were further supported by useful contributions from Omar Yusuf and Tayyab Tahir. Saim Ayub's commanding knock of 122 and Farhan's 88 set the stage for a formidable total. Pakistan A finished at 322 all out in 50 overs. Chasing 323, Sri Lanka A had a disappointing start, losing early wickets including that of Avishka Fernando. Pakistani bowlers led by Arshad Iqbal kept the pressure on, taking regular wickets and not allowing the Sri Lankan batsmen to settle. Sri Lanka A was bowled out for 262 runs in 45.4 overs, falling short by 60 runs. And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the News First team.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara.
Good night.